When Arthur Vance seized my arm outside Vance's auto spa, his complexion was pallid, almost chalky. "Eleanor," he rasped, his voice tight with alarm, "you must pull Amelia and those children away from Vincent today." Less than 3 hours later, I sat within my daughter's residence, clutching proof that would demolish every conviction she held about her impeccable marriage. But I'm racing ahead. If you're viewing this, please subscribe and indicate your viewing locale in the comments. Let me backtrack to that Tuesday morning in October 2026. I had offered to retrieve Vincent's luxury sedan from the car wash, performing a simple courtesy for my daughter, a gesture I'd repeated countless times. At 62, 5 years a widow, I had smoothly transitioned into the role of the family's ever-available support system. Need child-minding? Dial mom. Need errands managed? Dial mom. Need someone to recede into the backdrop while their significant lives unfolded? Dial mom. I steered my sedan into Vance's auto spa near 10 a.m. Arthur was positioned near the main entry, and my heart performed that familiar, silly leap it always did. We had dated 4 decades ago, during the era when voluminous hairstyles and padded shoulders reigned supreme, and we truly believed we possessed unlimited time. Destiny, however, had other intentions. I wed Robert. Arthur married Clara. Yet following Clara's passing 7 years prior, we had cultivated a relaxed rapport, anchored in shared history, and a warmth that time hadn't managed to extinguish. "Eleanor Reynolds," he greeted me, but his customary genial smile was noticeably absent. His rugged working man's hands gripped a heavy beige folder as if it were a volatile explosive. "We need to confer privately." He drew me into his cramped utilitarian office and secured the latch. The folder trembled subtly as he pressed it into my grasp. My crew discovered this jammed beneath Vincent's driver's seat. It slipped out when they were conducting the exhaustive internal cleaning. Inside lay a California state driver's license. Vincent's visage stared back at me, yet the surname displayed was Douglas Abbott. A secondary license depicted the identical face, but the name was Vincent Hayes. The cards bore distinct birth dates and various residential coordinates. My knees felt suddenly unsteady. "There's further information," Arthur disclosed softly. He displayed several printed digital correspondence items concerning substantial asset transfers, financial holdings in the Bahamas, and a verified booking for 2 adults and 2 minors on a single-journey flight destined for Panama. The departure date, November 5th, a scant 3 weeks in the future. "Arthur, I'm failing to comprehend this. Why would Vincent require numerous identifications?" "Because he has executed this scenario previously." Arthur pulled up a digital news piece on his mobile phone. My son-in-law's face was visible beneath a glaring title. "Career fraudster. Sentenced to 5 years for multi-state identity theft and bigamy." The small room appeared to list suddenly. "That cannot possibly be Vincent. Amelia encountered him 8 years ago at an art gallery benefit. Examine the calendar dates, Eleanor." The piece was dated 2015. Douglas Abbott had served 24 months before his parole in early 2017, just 4 months before he was introduced to my daughter. I collapsed onto Arthur's office chair. Amelia, who is 38, a compassionate speech pathologist dedicated to helping children articulate their thoughts, had united with a convicted deceiver. She had borne him 2 beloved offspring, 8-year-old Ethan and 6-year-old Zoe. "This exhibits a clear pattern," Arthur pointed out. "He deliberately targets lonely mothers with adult daughters, ingratiates himself, marries the daughter, progressively severs her connections to relatives, then empties the financial resources, and vanishes without a trace. He typically abducts the minors to employ as bargaining chips. My hand flew reflexively to cover my mouth. The children? The travel reservation specifies 2 adults and 2 children. He is finalizing preparations to abscond with your grandchildren. Eleanor, 5 years ago, when Robert died from a swift, catastrophic cardiac event, I was absolutely shattered. But I managed to rebuild my life. I had my modest dwelling, Robert's retirement benefit, and most vital of all, I had Amelia and the youngsters residing merely a quarter-hour away. Yet nothing had been truly normal. Over the preceding 3 years, Vincent had subtly engineered isolation. Amelia must concentrate on our nucleus family, he would declare. Perhaps you should space out your visits, Eleanor. I had dismissed the feeling, labeling it irrational anxiety. It now appeared I hadn't been nearly vigilant enough. Now the scheme was transparent. He had been isolating my daughter, preparing the path for his swift disappearance. I must inform Amelia immediately. I rose, the folder gripped tightly in my trembling fingers. Arthur secured my elbow. Exercise extreme caution. If he suspects you possess this knowledge, he might accelerate his time frame. He will not seize my grandchildren. I am indifferent to the level of peril he presents. Arthur scrutinized my face for a moment. Then we shall proceed with intelligence and strategy. Allow me to place a few calls. By the time I departed Vance's auto spa an hour later, I had Arthur's cousin, a recently retired IRS investigator, poised to examine the evidence. I had the folder meticulously copied and secured in a concealed location. I pulled into my daughter's driveway at 11:30 a.m. Through the window pane, I could discern Amelia in the kitchen. Ethan's small scooter lay abandoned on the front lawn. Zoe's collection of miniature zoo animals lined the porch railing. Everything appeared so typical, so utterly perfect, all constructed upon a foundation of falsehoods. The incriminating documents rested on my passenger seat. I inhaled deeply and advanced toward my daughter's entrance, ready to demolish her reality in order to preserve it. Amelia opened the door, a smudge of flour decorating her cheek and a wide grin that nearly extinguished my resolve. "Mom, impeccable timing. I'm baking scones. Will you stay for luncheon?" Behind her, I could see Ethan engrossed in a drawing project at the dining table. Zoe was erecting a complex structure with toy construction blocks. The scene was one of total innocence, entirely secure. I nearly retreated. "Actually, darling, we urgently need to talk. Is Vincent present?" "He's at his office. A rather important client consultation." She dried her hands on her apron. "Mom, you look exceptionally pale. Are you quite all right? May we converse privately?" Amelia's smile gradually evaporated. She summoned Ethan. "Sweetheart, please take Zoe upstairs and engage in play for a brief period. All right?" Once the children had ascended, I settled at the kitchen counter and placed the folder between us. "I require you to examine something. Please endeavor to maintain an open mind." "You are alarming me excessively." "Good. You should be alarmed." I first extracted the driver's licenses. Arthur discovered these in Vincent's vehicle earlier today. Amelia took up the California license, confusion etching her features, then the second one. Her hand began to vibrate noticeably. I do not grasp this. Why would Vincent possess 2 identification cards with differing appellations? Continue examining the contents. She perused the accompanying documents, her face draining of color with each subsequent page. When she reached the news story detailing Vincent's past criminal conviction, she recopied the papers instantly, as if they had physically scorched her. "No, this constitutes a genuine error." "Darling, focus on the facial image. Many individuals share a resemblance. This Douglas Abbott individual, Perhaps he merely bears a strong likeness to Vincent. But her voice was fracturing. She understood. Somewhere profound within her, she acknowledged the terrible truth. I withdrew my mobile and displayed the flight confirmation. Single journey airfare to Panama, November 5th. 2 adults, 2 children. Ethan was listed as Ethan Hayes. Zoe as Zoe Hayes. Hayes, Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible. He's utilizing my maiden surname, likely to frustrate any efforts to locate them. I extended my hand across the counter to grasp hers, but she recoiled sharply. You are mistaken. You have consistently harbored suspicion toward Vincent. You never considered him a suitable partner for me. That remark stung because it contained an element of veracity. Amelia, heed my words meticulously. When exactly did you first encounter Vincent? February 2017, at the hospital benefit gala. And when did he propose to you? That subsequent summer, June. She was automatically defending the compressed timeline. Less than 6 months elapsed between their initial meeting and their marriage commitment. Did that not strike her as exceptionally quick? It was deeply romantic. He declared, "When you are certain, you are certain." But a distinct note of doubt had permeated her tone. I presented another document. This is Vincent's official parole documentation. He was officially released on January 20th, 2017, 4 weeks before he first met you. Amelia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. I insist that you leave this premises immediately. Darling, please reconsider. No. You enter my home brandishing false documentation, attempting to dismantle my marriage. I am utterly unaware of your motivation for this destructive behavior, but it must cease. Examine the children's official birth certificates. Cross-reference them against Vincent's actual date of birth. I wager you will uncover distinct discrepancies. Get out of my house. Amelia's voice had taken on a chilling resonance. It was the icy tone of a fiercely protective mother. And do not return until you are prepared to offer a sincere apology. I slowly gathered the scattered documents. Amelia, my love for you is absolute. I am merely attempting to shield you and the children. The sole threat they require shielding from is their grandmother's delusional paranoia. She practically propelled me toward the exit. Vincent has been nothing but steadfast and supportive to our family. He capably provides for our household. Whatever Arthur Vance imparted to you constitutes blatant untruths. The entrance door was slammed violently in my face. Through the small window, I watched my daughter collapse onto the sofa, her shoulders shaking rhythmically. She had begun to weep uncontrollably. I remained seated in my vehicle for 10 minutes, earnestly debating whether to contact the local police immediately. However, Arthur's cousin had cautioned me that without considerably more concrete proof, the authorities might not move with sufficient urgency. Vincent would undoubtedly perceive the threat and instantly vanish. My mobile phone vibrated. A brief text message from Arthur. Outcome? Total catastrophe. She expelled me. Return to the shop. My cousin is awaiting. Arthur's cousin, Michael Coleman, was a physically imposing man in his late 50s with intensely perceptive eyes. He listened to my entire narration without uttering a single interruption. A perfectly typical initial reaction, he pronounced finally. The spouse invariably defends the deceiver initially. It is a classic instance of cognitive dissonance. Accepting the absolute truth necessitates accepting that their entire matrimonial existence was a calculated falsehood. Therefore, what course of action do we pursue next? We construct an unassailable legal case before confronting him directly. Michael dispersed his notes across Arthur's desk. I conducted several preliminary inquiries, Douglas Abbott's original and legal name is Vincent Hayes, no relation to Eleanor's late husband, Robert. He has employed a minimum of 6 separate identities across 15 years. The pattern remains consistently identical. He targets vulnerable family structures, particularly those who have recently experienced a profound loss. My husband passed away 5 years ago, correct? But Vincent encountered your daughter back in 2017, well before that event. Michael produced a simple chronological diagram he had quickly sketched. These individuals are committed to the long con. He very likely identified your daughter as a prospective target several years ago. A mother, a professional in the healthcare sector, possessing a stable income stream. When your husband died 5 years ago, it provided him with the ideal window to cement his control. Suddenly, Amelia was more emotionally exposed, more reliant upon Vincent. He probably strategically positioned himself as her reliable pillar of strength during her period of profound bereavement. The calculated maliciousness of the scheme made me feel physically ill. He has been systematically planning this for 10 years, potentially, or he merely recognized an opportune moment and expertly adapted his existing plans. Regardless of the timeline, your daughter was not a random choice. She was meticulously selected. Michael dedicated the next hour to meticulously detailing Vincent's probable ultimate objective. He had been incrementally moving assets, likely convincing Amelia they represented intelligent investment maneuvers. The flight to Panama would be promptly followed by the establishment of completely new identities for himself and the children. Amelia would be left isolated, too petrified to involve the police because Vincent would unequivocally threaten to permanently disappear with Ethan and Zoe. Women in her precarious position frequently decline to report the crime, Michael elaborated. They are paralyzed by the fear of never seeing their children again. He will transmit periodic photographs, proof of life, in exchange for her guaranteed silence. He may even demand further periodic monetary transfers. My stomach churned in distress. How do we effectively stop him? We urgently require Amelia's cooperation. She absolutely must scrutinize their joint accounts, search for hidden financial irregularities, but more critically, she needs to maintain an outward facade of total normalcy around Vincent. If he harbors even the slightest suspicion that she knows the truth, he will immediately vanish. She refuses to speak to me. Arthur gently cleared his throat. Perhaps she doesn't need to. Not yet, anyway. Both Michael and I turned our attention to him. Arthur looked visibly uncomfortable, but absolutely resolute. Eleanor, you and I have been awkwardly avoiding a certain subject for quite some time now. I am formally inviting you to dinner tomorrow evening. A genuine date. Despite the overwhelming circumstances, I felt a slight flush of warmth creep up my neck. You are requesting a date while my daughter's family life is in complete ruins? I am asking because life is inherently precarious and precious, and I have irrevocably wasted far too much time being fearful, he countered, squeezing my hand firmly. Also, it furnishes me with a perfectly legitimate pretext to remain in close proximity to you. Vincent is aware that we are old acquaintances. If we initiate a dating relationship, I possess a valid reason to be present more frequently, an additional set of watchful eyes on this entire scenario. Michael offered a nod of definite approval. That demonstrates remarkably intelligent strategic thinking. I looked intently at Arthur, truly looked at him. At 66, he had matured gracefully. Silver-streaked hair, unmistakable laugh lines etched around his deep blue eyes that had always possessed the ability to penetrate my defenses. We had separated 40 years ago because we were excessively young and completely terrified of commitment. But now, we were both alone, and the deep emotional connection, it had genuinely never dissolved. "Very well," I agreed. "Tomorrow night collect me at 7 o'clock. Arthur's smile was like a burst of sunlight. "It is a date." Michael gave a mild cough. "Once Vincent is securely in custody, you too may indulge in all the romance you desire. Presently, we require an established course of action." We spent an additional hour strategizing. Michael would delve much deeper into Vincent's intricate financial history. Arthur would leverage his network of contacts to gather supplementary intelligence, and I would locate a method to finally reach Amelia. That evening, as I lay in bed, utterly unable to sleep, my phone signaled a new text message from an unidentified number. "Cease your inquiries regarding Douglas Abbott for your daughter's well-being." My heart began to pound violently. I immediately screen captured the message and securely forwarded it to Michael. His reply arrived within minutes. "Do not respond under any circumstances. Preserve all communications. Eleanor, this undeniably confirms he is actively monitoring the situation." I stared blankly at my ceiling, envisioning my grandchildren asleep, merely 15 minutes away with a dangerous predator. Ethan with his infectious, gap-toothed grin. Zoe with her profound unicorn obsession. Vincent Hayes had disastrously chosen the wrong family. I might be a 62-year-old widow, but I was also a woman who had successfully raised a daughter on her own after Robert's death, who had tirelessly worked 2 concurrent jobs to keep our home solvent, who had survived and completely rebuilt. And I was absolutely unwilling to allow some professional con artist to steal my grandchildren. The following morning, I awoke to find my car's rear window completely smashed. No accompanying note, but the message was starkly evident. I documented the damage with photographs, filed a formal police report, and telephoned Michael. "He is dramatically escalating his actions," I stated. "Excellent," Michael replied, surprising me greatly. "It signifies that he is genuinely frightened. Scared individuals make predictable mistakes. Keep applying pressure." I spent the day dealing with my insurance provider, then had the window swiftly replaced. Arthur texted to firmly confirm our dinner plans, adding, "Maintain your fortitude." At 6:30 p.m., as I prepared myself, my mobile rang. Amelia. My hand trembled as I answered the call. "Hello, Mom." Her voice was soft, fragile, utterly broken. "Can you please come over? Vincent is working late, and I desperately need to show you something." "I will be there immediately." I arrived at Amelia's house in under 15 minutes. She opened the door before I could even knock, her eyes clearly red and puffy from intense crying. I checked the financial accounts. Exactly as you warned, a significant sum of money is missing. A very substantial amount of money. Amelia guided me directly to Vincent's home office. He always insisted this was his private workspace. I foolishly respected that boundary. Heavens, I was so incredibly naive. "You were not naive. You were merely trusting," I corrected. She had already brought up multiple bank statements on Vincent's desktop computer. I logged in using the single password I assumed was solely for our joint account. It turns out there are 7 other accounts I was completely unaware of, so, she revealed. Her finger traced the figures on the monitor. Over the past 20 months, he has been steadily moving money. Small, insignificant amounts initially, but in the last 4 months, the transfers have drastically accelerated. He has moved close to $250,000. I felt a chilling sensation. $250,000. My inheritance from Dad. The funds he set aside for me when he passed. Vincent convinced me to place it all into high-yield global investments. He insisted he would manage every detail, she laughed bitterly. I signed the authorization documents without even bothering to read the fine print. I placed my arm securely around her shaking shoulders. Darling, I am profoundly sorry. There's more, Mom. She clicked to a different digital folder. I discovered these correspondence files. He has been actively communicating with an individual named Veronica Hayes, my surname. She signs off with "all my love" and discusses how much she misses him and the children. Our children, Mom. He is telling another woman that my children are hers. The depth of the emotional betrayal was more profound than I had ever contemplated. Vincent was not solely a financial thief. He was systematically constructing a false reality for multiple unsuspecting women. He was likely running the identical con game concurrently. Have you actually confronted him with this yet? Not yet. I needed you here first. Amelia wiped her eyes dry. You were completely accurate about everything. The multiple identity cards, the flight reservation to Panama, all of it. I found the tickets already printed out in his desk drawer, alongside laminated fraudulent travel documents for the kids. Different names, altered birth dates. We must notify the police now. I took that step an hour ago. Amelia's voice had hardened with absolute resolve. They are dispatching a detective to the house at precisely 8 p.m. I fully disclosed every detail to them. A surge of pride swelled within my chest. My daughter was powerfully fighting back. What about the children? They are at Mrs. Peterson's in-home daycare, the usual place I utilize when my shifts extend late. I simply informed her I required a few additional hours this evening, she explained. She paused meaningfully. I never permitted them to visit Vincent's supposed parents' home. Something always felt inherently wrong about that arrangement. Now I fully understand why. Excellent instincts, darling. Amelia suddenly stood up. I urgently need you to take the children tonight. After the detective departs, I am picking them up and bringing them directly to your house. Pack adequate clothing and supplies for a full week. I absolutely do not want them present when Vincent is finally arrested. Arrested? The detective informed me they have been diligently constructing a case against him. The IRS has had him under surveillance for a total of 8 months. My call tonight provided them with the definitive final component they required. She met my gaze, and I saw unwavering steel reflected there. He is finished, Mom. This time he is truly, completely finished. The doorbell sounded precisely at 8 p.m. Detective Gina Lopez was a slight, compact woman in her early 40s, with intensely focused eyes and a thoroughly professional demeanor. She listened intently as Amelia walked her through the evidence, taking copious notes and photographing the various documents. Mrs. Hayes, I need to be completely honest with you, Detective Lopez stated. Your husband is considered dangerous. He is wanted in connection with similar crimes in 6 states. When we execute the arrest, there is a significant possibility he will attempt to violently flee. Amelia's jawline tightened visibly. When exactly will you arrest him? We are coordinating closely with federal agents. Ideally, we wish to take him into custody at his workplace tomorrow afternoon. It is a public location, minimizing the chance of complications. Does he possess any weapons? My voice came out much higher pitched than I had intended. Detective Lopez's expression softened momentarily. We have credible information to believe he keeps an unregistered handgun concealed in his vehicle. He has never been physically violent in his previous cons, but we simply do not take unnecessary risks. I felt compelled to ask, if you have been meticulously observing him for 8 months, why wait until this moment? That is a fair question, Detective Lopez conceded. Federal cases demand significant time to build, particularly when they involve multiple state lines. We required rock-solid evidence demonstrating his intent to commit a current crime, not solely reliance on his past offenses. The flight booking and the fraudulent travel documents provide that crucial element. More importantly, we needed a primary victim who was willing to immediately provide a testimony. Your daughter's full cooperation tonight means we can move with extreme speed before he even realizes we are closing in. Had we moved prematurely, an experienced lawyer might have managed to get him acquitted on legal technicalities. That explanation made a certain amount of logical sense. Nevertheless, I still intensely disliked how perilously close we had come to permanently losing Ethan and Zoe. After the detective's departure, Amelia and I sat in heavy silence. Finally, she spoke. "That intimidating text message you received yesterday, was that directly from Vincent?" "Michael is convinced it was." "And your smashed rear window this morning?" It was a definitive statement, not a question. "He terrorized my mother." "What species of monster does that to a person?" "The kind who is about to spend an extraordinarily long duration in federal prison." We drove together to collect Ethan and Zoe from Mrs. Peterson's welcoming little house. The elderly woman handed them over with a genuine warm smile, utterly oblivious to the massive drama unfolding. "Such wonderful children," she remarked. "See you next week." "I will contact you," Amelia replied, her voice remarkably steady despite everything. In the car, Lily chattered excitedly about her toys while Owen gently dozed in his booster seat. Amelia drove with extreme caution, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. "I keep mentally replaying all the warning signs I inexplicably missed," she confessed. The immediate anger he displayed if I asked too many specific questions about his early life. The numerous times I successfully caught him in trivial deceptions. "He is a professional operative," I stated firmly. "He possesses an expert's understanding of exactly how to manipulate human beings. Absolutely none of this falls under your responsibility." "But it does, doesn't it? You harbored reservations from the very beginning." I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "You simply fell deeply in love, darling. There is no blame to be assigned in that." At my home, I had already thoroughly prepared the spare bedroom. Amelia assisted me in settling them in. Both of us desperately attempted to maintain an atmosphere of reassuring normalcy. After they were peacefully asleep, we sat at my kitchen table, ostensibly to drink tea. Neither of us actually consumed the beverage. "Arthur phoned earlier," I mentioned. "He said he wanted to verify your emotional state." Amelia managed a fleeting small smile. "Arthur Vance. I always privately speculated if you two might eventually reconnect. Dad used to make light-hearted jokes about it. He would say, 'If anything unfortunate ever befalls me, you have my complete blessing to seek out Arthur.' He always knew you two shared something truly exceptional." Tears stung my eyes intensely. Robert was an exceptionally good man. He truly was, and he would want you to attain happiness. She paused, gathering her thoughts. "And he would certainly want me to be intelligent enough to definitively learn from my colossal errors." My phone vibrated. A text from Michael. "Tomorrow, 2:12 p.m. at Hayes's office. Be prepared." I displayed the message to Amelia. Her expression became determinedly resolute. "Excellent. Let's decisively end this situation." The subsequent morning unfolded with a palpable, almost surreal slowness. I prepared the children pancakes shaped like a pterodactyl for Ethan and stars for Zoe. I desperately attempted to maintain the facade of normalcy while my stomach churned uncontrollably. At 9:10 a.m., Arthur arrived to take me out for breakfast. We drove to a quiet, small diner located 2 adjacent towns away, safely distant from anyone who might recognize us. You barely slept a wink, Arthur observed, intently studying my face from across the table. Every time I closed my eyes, I envisioned a negative outcome. Vincent successfully escaping, the children being harmed, I confessed, wrapping both hands tightly around my coffee mug. I keep dwelling on how incredibly close we came to permanently losing them. Arthur reached across the table and firmly took my hand. But we didn't lose them, Eleanor. You located the evidence in perfect time. That required tremendous courage, Eleanor. You barely knew me 40 years ago. I knew enough of your character. His thumb gently traced continuous circles on my palm. I knew you possessed a fierce spirit and unshakable loyalty, and that you loved with your entire passionate heart. I knew that ending our relationship was the single most idiotic decision I have ever made. I looked down at our joined hands. Why now, Arthur? After this endless span of years? Because Clara's death unequivocally taught me that time is never guaranteed. Because I spent 5 debilitating years consumed by grief. And when I finally managed to look around me, you were miraculously still here. Still fierce, still absolutely beautiful. He squeezed my hand gently but firmly. Because I am 66 years old, and I am utterly exhausted by being afraid. Tears streamed unchecked down my cheeks. I cannot possibly think about us right now, not until Vincent is definitively placed behind cold bars. I fully understand. That is precisely why this is emphatically not a date. It is simply 2 very old friends anxiously waiting for the world to either completely disintegrate or finally snap back into proper alignment. He smiled gently. But when this entire ordeal is definitively over, Eleanor, I am taking you to a proper dinner, a true date, and I am going to eloquently articulate all the things I tragically should have voiced 40 years ago. My phone rang at 1:30 p.m. Michael. They are in position. Vincent is currently in his office for what he believes is just another routine afternoon. Does Amelia know to anticipate my incoming call? She is ready and fully prepared. Instruct her to maintain absolute composure no matter what happens next. And Eleanor, you may strongly consider having Arthur remain with you, a crucial support system. Arthur drove me straight home without a single word of prompting. We sat together in my living room, waiting in agonizing silence. At 1:55 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Lopez. Mrs. Hayes, I wanted you to personally receive this news directly from me. We have successfully taken Vincent Hayes into custody. He is currently being transported to federal holding facilities. 0 incidents, 0 injuries. It is officially over. The wave of overwhelming relief was so powerful, I felt instantly lightheaded. Thank you. Thank you so very much. After I ended the call, I turned toward Arthur and simply allowed myself to completely break down. He held me tightly while I sobbed uncontrollably. When I finally pulled back, his shirt was saturated, but he was beaming. See? I told you we would decisively handle this. Amelia arrived home about an hour later. Her face was pale, but her expression was composed. They arrested him right at his desk, simply walked in and applied the handcuffs. He attempted to feign total innocence, but they possessed all the necessary documentation. How are you genuinely holding up emotionally? She sank onto my sofa. Honestly, I have no idea. A substantial part of me feels overwhelming relief. Another part is deeply humiliated. Everyone at his firm knows. It will be the main topic of conversation across town by tomorrow morning. Amelia Hayes, the woman who courageously shielded her children and successfully apprehended a career criminal. I firmly corrected her. That is the definitive narrative. Arthur gently cleared his throat. For whatever it's genuinely worth, I concur with your mother. You demonstrated real strength and resolve. Amelia looked directly at him. Thank you for unearthing that critical evidence. If you hadn't been meticulous, if you had simply ignored that envelope— I always pay very close attention to minute details, Arthur stated simply. But I am deeply glad that I could be of assistance. And slightly awkward silence settled between the three of us. Then Amelia asked, So, you two, are you officially dating? Despite the gravity of everything, I felt a gentle warmth rise to my face. We are in the process of determining that. Good. Amelia's expression softened considerably. You absolutely deserve to be happy, Mom. You deserve your own happiness. 3 weeks following Vincent's arrest, I learned he was far more than just a typical con man. He was a ruthless monster with a much more extensive reach than any of us had ever conceived. Michael called me on a Tuesday morning. Eleanor, I need both you and Amelia to come to my office without delay. There is something critically important you both need to see. We arrived within the hour. Michael had a series of photographs spread across his desk. They were images of women, at least 9 of them, each accompanied by small children. These are Vincent's other known victims over the last 15 years. The IRS has been tracking his activities, but he consistently remained one step ahead of law enforcement. That is, until you. Amelia picked up one photograph. A woman with dark, styled hair and 2 very young boys. Who is she? Patricia Stevens. She married Vincent in 2009 under the alias Daniel Morris. He completely drained her financial accounts and disappeared with her sons in 2011. They were eventually recovered 2 years later in a small town in Belize. By that point, the boys no longer even recognized their own mother. Michael pointed to another photo. Karen Stiles, 2013. Same exact methodology. She was separated from her daughter for 4 years. I felt nauseous. How many children are involved? 14 that we have confirmed so far. Some were eventually returned, others were not. Vincent would utilize them as primary leverage, aggressively demanding monetary payments from the mothers. Some of these women paid for years simply to receive an occasional photograph proving their children were still alive. Amelia's face had turned ghostly white. If we hadn't caught him in time, Ethan and Zoe would have been— But we did catch him, I asserted firmly, although my own hands were visibly shaking. And now, he is permanently unable to harm anyone else. Michael produced another official file. There's more information. The federal prosecutor urgently requires both of you to testify at the upcoming trial. So do 3 other victims, including Patricia Stevens. Vincent is facing multiple felony charges in 7 separate states. With the mountain of evidence we possess, he is looking at a minimum of 45 years in federal prison. 45 years, Amelia repeated slowly. He will be in his 70s when he is eligible for release. If he is ever released, Michael corrected her gently. Given his extensive history and the brutal severity of the charges, there is a very high probability he will die in prison. Arthur was patiently waiting in his vehicle outside Michael's office. One quick glance at my face, and he immediately pulled me into a fierce embrace. Bad news. Was it worse than we anticipated? I told him about the numerous other victims, the innocent missing children, the decades of irreparable destruction Vincent had systematically left in his wake. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't innocently requested you to clean his car that fateful day? What if you had never located that crucial envelope? But I did locate it, and you acted decisively upon that information. That is the only thing that truly matters now, he whispered, kissing my forehead softly. You courageously saved your grandchildren, Eleanor, and very possibly numerous future victims as well. That night, lying wide awake in bed, I could not stop thinking about those other heartbroken mothers, the years of precious time they had lost with their children, the deep emotional trauma that would likely never fully heal. I had been incredibly fortunate. We had successfully apprehended Vincent before he could disappear permanently. But mere luck was not true justice. The following morning, I reached a firm decision. I called each of the women Michael had shown me in the photographs. "My name is Eleanor Hayes," I told them, my voice resolute. "Vincent Hayes attempted to permanently take my grandchildren. I want to personally ensure he never, ever gets the opportunity to inflict harm on another family again. Will you please assist me in this fight?" By the end of the week, I had spoken to all 9 women. Each shared a harrowing story that brought me instantly to tears. Each carried deep emotional scars that would likely never fully fade away. But each one also possessed the identical burning resolve I had felt when I first saw that envelope, the profound, visceral need for absolute justice. We organized a collective group, deciding to call ourselves the Vow Keepers. Not particularly creative, but the name felt genuinely appropriate. We met regularly via secured video calls, sharing our emotional stories, offering unwavering support to one another through the complex legal processes, and we reached a solemn agreement. We would all testify. Every single one of us would stand resolutely in that courtroom and make absolutely certain that Vincent Hayes would never again walk freely among us. Amelia began to join our calls. Initially, she was quiet and reserved, mostly listening intently to the other women's narratives. But gradually, she also began to share her personal experience. "I honestly believed I was so intelligent," she admitted during our 3rd group meeting. "I am a speech pathologist. I am highly educated. How could I have possibly failed to see the warning signs?" "Because he is a true professional," Patricia Stevens replied, her voice kind yet authoritative. "He studied us all, learning our precise vulnerabilities. None of us are truly stupid. We were strategically targeted by an individual who made calculated deception his entire life's work. The immediate sense of shared solidarity was healing in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. These women understood precisely what we had endured in a way no other person truly could. And working together, we were infinitely stronger than Vincent could ever hope to be. Vincent's initial calculated attempt to manipulate the situation from his isolated prison cell arrived exactly 1 month after his final arrest. Amelia received a letter, handwritten on standard prison stationery. "My dearest Amelia, I am fully aware you must be feeling confused and incredibly hurt, but please endeavor to understand that absolutely everything I did was for the well-being of us, for our family. The financial assets I relocated were strictly to protect them from my enemies. The planned flight to Panama was purely a necessary safety precaution. I genuinely never intended to cause you any pain. Please, I implore you, bring the children to visit me. I miss them terribly." With all my enduring love, Vincent Amelia read it aloud to me, her voice shaking intensely with suppressed rage. He still genuinely believes I am foolish enough to succumb to his insidious lies. "Do not respond under any circumstances," Michael strictly advised when we presented him with the letter. "He is essentially fishing, attempting to determine if he still retains any degree of psychological control over you. Any reply, even an angry one, signals to him that he is successfully getting to you." But Vincent refused to desist. Further letters continued to arrive weekly, each one increasingly desperate, more patently manipulative. He baselessly claimed he was being falsely framed, that the evidence was maliciously planted, that the other victims were collaborating and lying purely for financial gain. When Amelia steadfastly continued to ignore his written pleas, he adopted a different, more chilling tactic. Zoe received a colorful card in the mail. "To my most darling little girl, Daddy loves you so, so much. I sincerely hope you are being a very good girl for Mommy. I promise I will see you again soon. XOXO." Amelia immediately contacted Michael. "He sent my 6-year-old daughter a card directly from federal prison. How is that even remotely possible?" "He likely had an accomplice on the outside mail it for him," Michael speculated. "We will diligently trace the source. In the meantime, you must screen every single piece of incoming mail before the children are allowed to see it." The manipulative cards continued to arrive, one for Ethan, another for Zoe. Each one desperately attempted to preserve Vincent's fabricated image as a loving, wrongfully accused father. Amelia immediately incinerated every single one. "He is actively trying to poison their impression of me," she said one evening over dinner at my house, "making himself the innocent victim so they will eventually beg me to forgive him." "They are intelligent children," I reassured her. "They will eventually recognize his deception." But a creeping sense of doubt began to set in. Zoe had started asking pointed questions. Why exactly is Daddy locked up in jail? Did he really do very bad things? Ethan was still too young to fully grasp the entire situation, but he had started experiencing frequent nightmares. Arthur, who had been quietly eating his delicious pot roast, gently placed his fork down. Perhaps it is now the right time to tell them the unvarnished truth, an age-appropriate version, naturally. But the actual truth. Children instinctively know when adults are concealing information, and they always imagine a reality far worse than the truth. Amelia and I exchanged a long look. He was entirely correct. We had been focused on protecting them, but our silence was inadvertently breeding more fear and confusion. That weekend, Amelia sat down with both children. I was there, offering my quiet support. Arthur, too. "Your father made some extremely poor decisions," Amelia told them gently but firmly. "He consistently lied to people and deliberately took property that did not belong to him. He caused profound harm to numerous families, including ours. That is the reason he is currently in jail." "Did he personally hurt you, Mommy?" Zoe asked, her eyes wide with concern. "Not physically, no. But yes, he did hurt me emotionally, and he was actively planning to take you and Ethan away from me. Grandma successfully stopped him." Ethan looked at me with newfound respect in his eyes. "Grandma's a superhero." Despite everything, I had to smile slightly. I simply did what all grandmas are supposed to do, protect their beloved family. Although internally I wholeheartedly agreed. Yes, Ethan, your grandma is essentially a certified superhero. Cape optional. The difficult conversation was emotionally draining but absolutely essential. Afterward, Zoe hugged me tightly. "Thank you for saving us, Grandma." Arthur drove me home that night. "You handled that entire situation exceptionally well," he praised me. "All of you did a remarkable job." "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop decisively," I admitted. "Vincent is far too quiet now. No more letters, no more manipulative cards. It makes me extremely uneasy." "Actually," Arthur revealed, "Michael informed me earlier today that the prison authorities significantly restricted Vincent's mail privileges after they successfully traced the source of those cards. It turns out he was utilizing another inmate's visiting girlfriend to mail them for him. Once they discovered the deception, they immediately shut down the operation. That explained the sudden, unnerving silence. Good, Perhaps he will finally comprehend that he possesses no power over us anymore. Arthur pulled into my driveway but left the engine running. Eleanor, may I ask you one final question? Of course. When this whole ordeal is completely finished, when Vincent is finally sentenced, and Amelia has fully managed to rebuild her life, what exactly do you desire for yourself? I mean, I looked